Right.
Y'all, welcome. This is Spencer Keck coming at you live. Welcome for coming on out tonight.
Standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Built upon the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal. I need to hear a hallelujah, though I'm not considered a believer by some. I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I need the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I have reached the valley of kingdom come. And when I reach that valley, I need to see you there, because we don't need a kingdom, we only need free air. And we don't seek a king, we seek the brotherhood of man.
Midnight Saturday, the deadline came and went. Trade talks between the United States and Canada, our closest neighbor, our most loyal ally, the country right across the Great Lakes, collapsed again. And now 50% tariffs are back on Canadian goods, and Canada's matching us dollar for dollar starting September 8th. I call it Groundhog Day because we've been here before, and every single time we run this play, it's Kentucky that eats the cost. Welcome to the Hillbilly Think Tank with Spencer Keck. I am the educated hillbilly, and no, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. There have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies in Kentucky ever since my kith and kin came through that Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone and the other long hunters in their pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness right here. And they found it here. They established it with grit and determination. We've got to do the same. So, y'all, I'm Spencer Keck, retired Navy doc, combat veteran, FMF Navy doc, currently a public school teacher and a candidate for magistrate on the Hardin County Fiscal Court, District 3. And today, I want to talk pocketbook because this one hits every kitchen table in this district. Segment 1, what actually happened this weekend? Now, y'all, we've been here before. And due to the fact that this means so much to this county and this whole state, this trade war. I mean, Canada buys so much of the goods from Kentucky. We're one of the states that is their biggest trading partners. Here we go. Here's the timeline. Trade talks between Washington and Ottawa fell apart late Friday night. President Trump's 50% tariffs on roughly $20 billion of Canadian goods, alcohol, dairy, cement, hockey sticks, and more took effect Saturday. Now, the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, said the U.S. side made last-minute changes that were, in his words, unfair, uneconomic, and called into question the reliability of any deal. He suspended negotiations and sent Canada's team home, y'all. Canada's matching tariffs kick in on September 8th. It's going to hit steel, dairy, appliances, farm equipment, pulp and paper, and electronics. Now, here's the part that ought to raise your eyebrows. According to Carney and multiple outlets reporting this weekend, the demands that blew up the deal weren't really about the trade at all. Carney says the U.S. wanted Canada to change its French language protections in Quebec and wanted language that would have restricted Canada's ability to make trade deals with other countries, essentially running Ottawa's trade policy right there out of Washington. A former U.S. ambassador called it utter and total insanity. Canadian commentators called it de facto annexation. I want to be careful here. This is Carney's accounts of closed door negotiations, not something I can independently verify line by line. But come on, y'all. We know what this president has said from day one in office. He demanded that Canada become the United States' 51st state, either by choice or, as the president said, by force. He gave those two options. And then he started a tariff war that has been hurting Kentucky ever since. So again, it's consistent with a full year of the president floating the idea of Canada, as I said, as the 51st state, and Canada is treating it as exactly that kind of overreach. Now, whatever you think about the politics in Ottawa, here's what's not in dispute. The bill, this comes straight out of Kentucky. And who's going to pay for it? We will. We're going to pay for these tariffs. It's going to hurt our farmers, our producers right here. So as this goes on and on and on, we know that our farmers in this state have been hit hard by these tariffs again and again and again. And here we go. I mean, when is enough enough? When can we say, hey, now the madness has to end? Well, here's what Carney had to say.
I warned that America is trying to break us so they can own us. And I promised that I warned that America is trying to break us so they can own us. And I promise that that will never, ever happen. We are keeping that promise. Canada is becoming stronger and less dependent on America. We are already giving ourselves more than they can take away. And we are just getting started.
So they're just getting started. They have seen this game, this Groundhog Day, so many times over and over. And they don't need to be hurt. There are other trade partners in the world, is what he's saying. You know, because we were the kids next door and we played with them our whole life together, they never expected for us to try to rob them like this.
As we observed earlier this week in St. John's, Canadians don't submit to the weather. We thrive in it. We don't wait to see which way the wind's blowing or surrender ourselves to the waves to be storm-tossed by events. We set our own course. We make our own weather.
So, I mean, does anyone have a problem with articulate English like this guy has great articulate English? To me, it's a breath of fresh air to hear someone who can actually talk coherently, stay on point. If I was writing his paragraph as an English language arts teacher, which I am, I would give him kudos for perfect paragraphs. Perfect, you know, he's got his sentence structure down. He knows what each paragraph is about. He's not going all over the world like someone else that we know in Orange.
Au Canada, nous sommes maîtres chez nous de l'océan à l'autre. Building Canada strong for all.
So there we go. So that is our neighbors next door, and they've had enough. Enough is enough is enough. Now, again, who's it going to hurt? Well, segment number 2. Bourbon bleeding out. You already know this one because I've talked about it before. I won't say ad nauseum, but this is something that is dear to my heart. But it's gotten worse. Since this fight started, the United States whiskey exports to Canada have collapsed by nearly 70% from a market worth about $250 million a year to around 89 million. Canadian provinces pulled American spirits off store shelves entirely, and most of them still haven't put us back. Jim Beam, one of the largest bourbon makers in this state, halted production at its Claremont, Kentucky distillery for all of 2026 because of the fallout. Now, y'all, why does that matter? Well, they're just right next door to us, and people here in Hardin County work there or worked there. 95% of the bourbon made in America comes from right here in Kentucky. We all know this. This industry supports more than 23,000 jobs and $2.2 billion for our state. And Canada was our single biggest overseas customer. Well, it's not even overseas, it's just over a border. There's no sea between us. Now, segment 3, it's not just bourbon. The whole barn took a hit here in Kentucky. And this is, what can we say? We know that this is insanity. Now we have to reckon with how we got here. So here's what doesn't make the headlines. Kentucky ships about 80.4 billion with a B dollars in goods to Canada every single year. And that's not just whiskey, that's the whole barn. Take ethanol. Canada is the largest destination in the world for American ethanol exports. 1.7 billion with a B dollars worth. That ethanol is made from corn, and Kentucky corn farmers feed that industry. 1 in every 4 rows of corn planted in this state goes to feeding poultry, and corn byproducts like distillers grains, DDGs, go straight into that same export pipeline that's now getting squeezed by a trade war. Take dairy. Trump's own tariff proclamation specifically cites long-running disputes over dairy access with Canada as one of the justifications for these tariffs. Now, that's a direct hit on Kentucky dairy farmers who are already operating on razor-thin margins. And Canada isn't just some minor trading partner that we can just shrug off. It's the second largest buyer of American agricultural products in the entire world, behind only China. And of course it's behind China because China is the largest country in the world. They're going to have more people to buy. So second to China. We've been, the 2 places we've been hitting the hardest. Buy the most from Kentucky. When a market that size goes sideways, Kentucky farmers, y'all, they don't just find a replacement customer by October. They eat the loss. So every one of these, corn, ethanol, dairy, bourbon, they touch a family farm right here in Hardin County and the surrounding communities. This is not an abstract trade statistic. It's the neighbor down the road who just watched his export contract evaporate. Y'all, we know this. Now let's think about segment 4, the hemp gut punch. This one's homegrown, y'all. And here's the one that didn't come from Ottawa at all. This one came from our own Kentucky delegation. Senator Mitch McConnell attached a provision to last year's spending bill that bans hemp-derived products containing more than 0.4 of a milligram of THC per container. Now, supporters say it only targets intoxicating products. But Kentucky's hemp industry and Kentucky's other Republican Senator, Rand Paul, say the threshold is so low, it wipes out full spectrum CBD products too. the ones people use for sleep and pain management, not to get high. One Kentucky hemp farmer told reporters he's got more than 500 acres of last year's crop just sitting on the shelf, unsellable, because as soon as they passed that bill, everything got shut down. Now, y'all, we can give Rand Paul his due here. I rarely do that. I'll give it to him. I'll give credit where credit's due. Rand Paul fought McConnell on this hard right here on the Senate floor. He's still pushing to let states like Kentucky, which already built their own regulatory system for hemp products, keep that system instead of a federal ban wiping it all out. Because, okay, well, that's supposed to be the party of states' rights. And here, Mitch McConnell decides, no, he's going to push something that's against states' rights. That's supposed to, so he went directly against what his party always says is their whole thing, their whole gimmick. Well, that's not a partisan fight, y'all, overall. You know, that's Kentucky's 2 Republican senators disagreeing about how to protect Kentucky farmers. And right now, the farmers are losing. So add it up. Bourbon, gutted by Canada. Corn and ethanol, squeezed by the same trade war. Dairy caught in the crossfire, and hemp farmers gut punched by their own senator's amendment. That's 4 different ways Kentucky agriculture has been hit. 2 from a trade war with our closest ally. 1 from homegrown Washington provisions. Now, segment 5, what this looks like on the ground. I don't need to tell you all what a bad harvest season feels like in Hardin County. I need to tell you, this isn't weather. This is policy made by 1,000 miles away, and Kentucky farmers had no seat at that table when it was written. Even in Kentucky's 6th congressional district race up there in Lexington, this weekend's tariff news is already showing up. Democratic candidate Zach Dimbo said flatly it's going to raise costs for central Kentucky families. That's not a Hardin County race, but it tells you something. This isn't a fringe complaint, y'all. It's showing up on kitchen table conversations and campaign trails across this Commonwealth right now, this week. So let's come back to this thought. See, we got some other folks on here. Tom, thanks for tuning in. Tom says, my own taxable income gig is reliant on the Bourbon Trail, bourbon tourism, bourbonism. My mom asked me why the word bourbonism seems like the name of religion. Well, it is for some of us. Good. That was a good one, Tom. Tom also says, one can make a legitimate argument that too much of our economy depends on growing corn on factory farms. Yes, you could. Now, Tom says, but of course, Idjit's tariffs screwed our economy in ways that may never be resolved. That is correct. Tom also said 90 years ago, hemp was Kentucky's leading cash crop. That's correct. Alcohol lobbies managed to influence legislators against legalizing hemp/THC or legalizing wacky tobacco because MJ is harder to regulate and has better medical outcomes than alcohol. Also true. Hemp is a useful crop in many ways. Rudolph Diesel also tested hemp oil as a fuel. Yes, he did. Of course, we know we had a very famous Kentucky libertarian who constantly ran on hemp with his hempmobile. You remember his vehicle that ran around with that hemp oil that you're talking about there, Tom? What a great character he was. Good, interesting politician, very good lawyer. All right, well, y'all, here when Hardin County Court sets its budget, when we look at what farmland is worth what our local ag economy can support, these federal trade fights, they aren't background noise here in Hardin County. They're the reason the number on the page is smaller than it should be. And we've got to think about that in depth. So my final take, Groundhog Day. That's what this is. We've run this exact play before. Tariffs, retaliation, collapse talks, a Kentucky farmer or distiller left holding the loss. And here we are again with an even bigger tariff and an even messier collapse over demands that by Canada's own account had nothing to do with a fair trade and everything to do with control. Kentucky bourbon, Kentucky corn and ethanol, Kentucky dairy, Kentucky hemp. 4 hits in one summer. 2 from our Washington's trade war with our best friend, 1 from Washington's own hand on hemp. When does it stop? I'll tell you when I hope it stops this November, when Kentucky farmers and their families decide that they've had enough of paying for a fight they never asked for. I'm Spencer Keck, the educated hillbilly, and this has been the Hillbilly Think Tank. Y'all, come on down to a fiscal court meeting. Bring your hardest question. Whether I earn your vote or not, together, we will get an answer. I'll see you there. Keep thinking deeply. And remember, in Kentucky, united we stand, divided we fall. It isn't just words on a flag. It's the glue that holds all of us together. Because if we love our neighbors as ourselves and recognize that, yes, we are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper, then we cannot be divided and we will not fall. Remember everyone deployed overseas and bless your corazón. That's Spanish for heart. Y'all, I'm hoping that your week has gotten off to a good start and hoping we want to keep on talking about this kind of thing. We can get on to better stuff. Doc out.
Rule of law. Standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Built upon the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal. I need to hear a hallelujah, though I'm not considered a believer by some. I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I need the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I have reached the valley of kingdom come. And when I reach that valley, I need to see you there. Because we don't need a kingdom, we only need free air. We don't seek a king, we seek the brotherhood of man. And we won't fight for bondage, as we need no king or woman. We will stand undivided, because we will raise the fallen. Now I need to hear a hallelujah as we tear down the wall there. Oh. between heaven and earth. As tears turn to mirth, as we walk through the valley of death, and I draw my last breath. I know rapture I feel when I touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I've reached the hollow where my ancestors roam.
Gatewood Galbraith. That's right. Tom, quite a good, cool guy. Used to get to eat with him every now and then in Lexington, Kentucky, when he would come into my dad's favorite restaurant.
I have seen the dream of MLK come true. I have seen Martin's dream of justice alive and world when at Thanksgiving my family sits down to break bread together with folks of many different races, ethnicities, religions. My family sees Martin's dream, and we only judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the